Welcome. Welcome everyone to this vast, eternal, ever-changing, pure, lustrous remembrance time of great change. Welcome to this space. Through these changes, through these waves, through the center of primordial sound and light, which is the center in the vast, unified, we could say, abyss. The allness is primordial sound and light. And we're going to discuss that here in the sacred space today, in this time, this very pivotal juncture and time we're in right now, where primordial sound and the original source seed, right? The misperceptions, the creations, we could say, the imprintations of those original expressions from that primordial sound actually could never not be, right? Because pure and perfect is always creation is always that pure Trinity, right? And so we're going to dive into what does that mean? Primordial source, seed, sound, as the original vibration is actually, we could say, before and beyond anything was, right? Before anything was created, we look at the seed. Look at the seed. We look at the circle even. Look at the circle. And to create the seed, we look at the Vesica Pisces. See the seed in the center? Well, what happens when you have one perfection, minus the fingers? You have one perfection, and then you go to create two. Within that two is the seed, right? And what happens there? As you're creating that so-called two-ness from the harmonic pure frequencies of the oneness, that imprintation, we look at the flower of life, right? The circle. As we are taking that original harmonic within that misperception of coming from the oneness into the two-ness, that primordial sound seed, as that first so-called division, perception of division, separation occurred, that imprintation continued to imprint, right? Imprint like the flower of life. Misperception, separation, actually, that we could say fissure, fracture, fragmentation, perception of never actually was, because what is was? No, the pure harmonic of primordial pure vibration is oneness. So that misperception, we could say, continued, and so did that misperception and fragmentation perception of that continuous through different stories of lines, storylines, time lines, creation of time, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, linear time, right? Creation of these separations of dimension 5, 7, 9, whatever, 12. It seems absurd, right? Nothing can actually be divided into these numbering systems, A to B, linear left to right, dimension 5 to 12 to 24. These misperceptions of this separation could never not be, right? And from this actual pure primordial vibration, the original source seed expression has always been eternal, pure, perfect, unwavering, right? And now, through all these, we could say storylines, experiences, all these undulations up to this juncture, to come into this now and perceive all of these ranges of, we could say, imprintation, right? Experience, undulation, misperception of time, over and over and over again, these different experiences. Even that, these timelines, right? Is there actually division of time? No, it's all dissolved. And through that simultaneous primordial source seed sound recognition, knowing that all has always been pure, perfect, unwavering, all within our own selves, eternal, pure, perfect, source, seed, sound, unwavering, frequency, tone, right? We're implementing in a way, anchoring, reminding, reflecting, remembering that we already know this. Original creation, primordial source, seed, sound could never be in separation, right? Because within the infinity of the circle, right, is all and nothing. Simultaneous. Before and during, within and about, and before creation was spoken, is the great vibration, which is what? The great pure tone. It's pure origination, which means that true wholeness, and we say true wholeness, we're not just discovering and now we're implementing wholeness. It's always been pure, perfect, whole, and complete. The misperception, you could say, was when that first seed went from oneness to two-ness, was this misperception of that frequency separation, and then imprinted into frequency, we could say manipulation, confusion, aversion, whatever words you want to use. Still, the great sound, original primordial tone has always been unwavering. Whatever imprintation and continuation, bringing it up into this moment, time. Really not, right? Not. Experience, frequency, color, wave, undulation. Every array of creation potentiality has been done so up to this gestational moment to say, recognize, realize that all of creation has always been in oneness. It's our remembrance of that seed imprintation and the confusion, creation of different variations of the velocity of the imprintation, right? So, really, to comprehend the magnitude of infinity is to realize that we need now, finally, to stop perceiving things into separation, right? And what I mean by that is that we now can remember the magnitude of the primordial sound, the great pure tone, which is really before and beyond anything was created, before that so-called separation of the seed from the source. And know that unwavering through our internal pillar gnosis, the primordial source sound, is to also know that we each individually have our own soul source frequency, which is our seed primordial source tone. And we all do. We all have that. And we all have that within us, eternal, unwavering tone, our great tone, with all of our codes, keys, and frequencies, right? Unwavering, unchanging, same parallel to before creation, which means before any of us took up, so to speak, took up incarnation, took up, so to speak, bodies, experiences, vibrations, undulations, time lines. Still and yet and beyond and before, the great tone all has always been one harmonic infinity of allness, even with and alongside each of our unique individual great seed primordial tones. And so we look at that vesica, that cellular division, so to speak, and how that division of the seed into another, perceivably created this continuation of an imprint. And so it did, right? Experiencing itself, creator, creation, creatrix, experiencing itself in every vibrational velocity, every speed, every array of potentiality up until this moment. Still and yet in those array of experience, still unwavering, unchanging wholeness, totality, right? All of creation experiencing itself. And why do I have this photo up? These are orbs of light. So if we look at it symbolically, even in the totality of all of creation, right? Say it's a great circle, primordial allness, which is of course beyond a circle, a shape. It's the all and the nothingness. However, symbolically, right? We have this circle. Now, before the circle came to the seed, I say split. Now, but as we look at that after, so to speak, the split, this eternal, unchanging source, primordial, great vibration, all of creation is still experiencing itself as each one of us. My cat. Experiencing itself as each one of us, right? So we could say, or each orb is, a soul, a soul, a soul, a soul, right? Radiating, 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 expressing itself unto itself, unto itself, unto itself, as itself, all of creation. So even so, there's different orbs, right? Different souls, different eternal expressions of source, seed, after the so-called split. Our primordial vibration, however, that each unique seed of source has been undulating and vibrating and undulating and vibrating, is still, you could say, part, is still that wholeness of creation, right? So what is really required now in this juncture, I'm saying this, And I'm feeling this. I know this is not necessarily something everyone will agree to based off of their comprehension and understanding, right? But what we really need to do now in this next huge, great change is go way beyond, way beyond multidimensionality. And I will say why, right? What does multidimensionality technically mean? That is saying, this dimensions are numbered, right? 5D, 7D, 9D, 12D, 22D, right? How many infinities of D are there? And they're not compartmentalized, actually, right? Nothing is compartmentalized, sectioned, segregated, numbered, linear, A to B. Time has been, we know, has been doesn't exist, that's past. There is no before, right? Which means there's no time, there's no later, which also means there's no linear A to B, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. There's no getting off this elevator of 5D and going to 7D. These things are misperceptions because of that so-called fracture, fissure, division, cellular division, right? 1 to 2ness, division, vesica, right? What happens within that seed when the oneness becomes 2ness, polarity? What happens there? Misperception, perceiving this one to becoming another. What happens from this misperception of being right here and accelerating into remembrance, revealing itself as itself, and no longer into any numbering system, going well beyond multidimensionality, name tags, labels, and boxes, and dissolving the personalities and needing to call anything on anything in these categories, right? These multidimensional facets are part of the fragments, which are also part of the story time and the time lines, linear lines, right? Separation lines, multidimensional lines, right? It's beyond multidimensionality because we go beyond what has so-called been known and divided into lines, right? Look at this drawing, painting. Lines, radiation lines. When something's radiating, there's not really lines, right? It's an emanation. Wholeness is an emanation. It's a vibration. And what is it actually vibrating? Sense it. What is vibration in primordial pure tone actually vibrating? It's pure tone. It's nameless. It's changeless. It's name a tagless, right? We need not number it because it's not important. That is a divisionary 1 to 2, this or that, coming from here to go there, when we're already all right where we are and have always been. Yes, we're in different, you want to say soul expressions, still of source vibration, the eternal allness of the primordial seed, which is sound, light, frequency, vibration, all in nothingness. So I am really inviting, I literally have a donkey walking down the road right now. Wow. Right, as I'm saying, beyond multidimensionality is anything is possible. There's no divisions. There really is no divisions. There's donkeys showing up through all of creation. because there's no divisions, there's no boxes, there's no lines, there's no need for name tags, and even beyond that, the original source, seed of creation, is going beyond these fractionalized, divided, compartmentalized systems, right? And this true return we're experiencing now, and even in the unity field, we look at beyond Earth, beyond this dimension, beyond, or excuse me, beyond this galaxy into all of these other galaxies. These creations were, right? We say were, but even the cosmos are reordering right now. The structures are reordering. The spatial relations, the actual cosmos locations, the junctures, the alignments are all changing. So what is this line and alignment that really is, a proximity of a frequency, we could say engagement, exchange, rotation through our existence, but really all of creation could never not be and has never been in segments. Right? This is part of us witnessing the storyline and the massivity, we could say, of the storyline decompartmentalizing and completely collapsing upon its own self right now, because there's no linear. There's no linear, there's no time, there's no divisions. And as we dissolve this, we get donkeys walking down the road. But as we dissolve the delusions and we realize what there is frequency emanations, we come into this gnosis that as we open our own pathways, right? Because that's what we're doing is we're dissolving the storylines, we're clearing the pathways, we're standing into sovereignty and totality of our soul expression, realizing that our soul emanation and seed, which is our codes and our keys, our emanation of our unique vibration in harmonic resonance and in full expression, is that primordial great tone of our creator, of source, of oneness, emanating itself through us as us, right? So the primordial source seed expression, we are all coming to bloom. Doesn't quite apply to the circle. We're coming to bloom right now in the realization that there's no need for these separation boxes that we've been telling and retelling, or perhaps not even telling at all, but feeling and sensing through the fields of experience that have been told. But we get to dissolve by witnessing it actually doesn't apply, right? That creation imprintation doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to view the heavens, the cosmos, as separated number dimensional planes when it's all infinite. And even what would be the relevancy of doing so, right? Because what does that do? Even if you look at, kind of um, confusions, delusions, I would say, but confusions and delusions of saying, 5D or 7D, we're going to this place. It's not a place, first of all. And by the way, thinking thoughts of going to this limited number system is putting a limited box tap onto a number system of a limitation outside of a limitation, still yet in a limitation. It doesn't make sense yet either, does it? Because we are infinite. So why are we putting a roof over the top of the head or putting a box tap on a bigger box inside of a smaller box when there is no box, right? And besides and beyond that, there's no putting light in a box. So, what we're discovering, uncovering, layer by layer of disillusion of all of the falsity we're witnessing, and all of the reclamation, all of the restructuring, what we're actually experiencing in varying different ways and different waves is that the original codex, right? Our original codex of the eternal creation is that. I'll say that again. Our eternal codex, right? Our original codes are eternal, timeless, nameless, dimensionless, boxless, right? There is no division. And even the time and the story time, we go beyond these needing to, I've thought this for very long actually, this fragmentation of needing to fragment, or excuse me, this confusion of integrating a fragment from a different timeline. That doesn't make sense. There is no fragment. There's a perception that there's a different timeline. Wherever you are in this right now, if you are being here fully in your presence right in this moment, there is no other place. There's no other time, and there's no other line, right? A line linear. Time doesn't exist. You're here right now, and all is happening right now. So there's nothing to go anywhere and go get from this different time. Everything, if you're having an awareness of something, right, somehow may be relevant or coming up to be seen, but you don't need to get it. Where do you need to get it and put it where, right? These things don't hold shape. And what we're witnessing as well, beyond that, thankfully, finally now, is that everything that doesn't resonate, doesn't make sense, any distortion that's ever been told or still emanating in the field, right? Any projection of, needing to learn this or teaching that, all of that's dissolving away because none of that is actually correct or true as sovereign, divine, infinite beings. So we're literally feeling and sensing through the fields of awareness, right? And collapsing and restructuring and watching and sensing and feeling. This is also why some of the energy feels the way it does in my perception, of course, is that we're watching as we witness something in even just a slight bit of distortion. Somebody said something, right? And you're like, oh. You could sense something's not quite right, or it's like, what is that? But as soon as you sense it, what is it doing? Because no distortion anywhere. Whatever it is, said, emanated in the field, say it's floating in the neighborhood, whatever. It can't hold shape at all. There's nothing it can hold to. It cannot even form. So we're literally witnessing, and this is part of why there's so many accelerations and energy changes through the earth and within each person. Say they're combusting. You say, well, this feels like chaotic or whatever word you want to use, right? And it's because these energies of distortion, wherever they are, say they're in the field, we're seeing it as it's being reflected in whatever way it is in the infinity of wholeness, as we're seeing, perceiving it instantaneously, as it being shown that that separation to-ness is not true. It's literally collapsing onto itself, right? So it's literally like we're watching collapse, restructure, collapse, restructure, collapse, see, witness, collapse. It's just like, whoo, 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 collapse, 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 collapse. And as it's collapsing, it's making space for restructure. And what is also happening through that? Now, I'm saying it in one example of what we're witnessing, depending on how much you sense and witnessing that, right? But in addition to the magnitude of, you could say, collective, that's also happening through the vastness of space, which doesn't have dimensional numbers or an elevator getting off 5D to 7D or something absurd like that, right? So as we're witnessing even that, and through time and space and all these even collectives of different systems that have massive distortion, right? Through space, parallel universes, councils, right? And all these different distortions being witnessed collapse. It's simultaneously doing basically this, right? And what does that mean? Is divine orchestration of that primordial center, we could say circle, which really is beyond a circle because it's before any creation of any shape and before the word, before the sound, before the sound, before the word, before the form, primordial, allness, the triune, the Trinity, creator, creatrix, creation, Father, Son, Holy, Christos, Spirit. However you want to word it, articulate, right? The all and nothingness of all of source, unwavering, unchanging, timeless, eternal. And in this vast now acceleration, all of these non-numbered dimensions, restructure, collapse, restructure, collapse. You know, you could look at it macroly, like say your household, your job, your relationship. And then macro, you know, zoom out some, right? Go from micro to macro, zoom out some. Your neighborhood, that state, that country, beyond division, that earth, right? Macro, macro, macro. Beyond this galaxy, beyond that, those galaxies, beyond these numbered systems, into the abyss, multiverse, beyond parallel universes. This is happening now, right? And this restructuring is this great harmonic tone. This is actually part of the cycles and the beauty and the profundity of divine orchestration, as none is the, or excuse me, none of this was in error. It's a perception. There was an oops, an error, or something so-called bad that happened. No, what happened was this misperception, oneness, in creation, that something was separate because it was coming from this infinity of allness. I mean, look at the grand infinity of allness. How big could that be beyond the mind comprehension? Allness and nothingness coming into the vibration frequency of a form may look perceivably as a division, right? Coming from vastness into something else. And then that misperception was told and told and told, expressed through sound and through color and through wave in many ways, and through many emotions and through many perceptions, right? It doesn't mean any of it was true. It was an experience of all of creation in its vastness, experiencing itself as all these other potentials, arrays, frequencies, vibrations. And yet still unwavering and eternal before form and before ever taking up any lifetime, any timeline inside of all cycles of experience. We all have that unwavering primordial source seed sound. And of course, it comes from the great harmonic, we could say universal, but the allness of oneness from the great seed, purity, vibration, perfection, eternal essence, unwavering, right? And so, as we talk about this here in this space, in this now, in this place, linear or not, however you find it, in your expression, radiation, nonlinear vibration, we look at our awakening, perception of awakening really is remembrance. You know, what is that? What does that actually mean to awaken, right? Because really, the perception of ascension, what is that? It's not really correct either, right? Ascension is in that same octave, so to speak, parallel of dimension, right? You're coming from here to go there, here to there, A to B. I need to be from here where I am right here. I need to go there. You know, this to thatness, coming from the space to go to a different space. You know, and most of us, I perceive it this way. Most of us here right now, we've already done that. We're not here to really do that. That remembrance is that there is no separation of these different um, spaces, right? And so to fully awaken into remembrance is to really truly emanate and radiate our true primordial source seed frequencies. And what does that mean? Is that what are we essentially doing right now is dissolving, right? Through these collapse, instantaneous collapse, restructure. And this is how I'm sensing it. You can drop a comment too. It'd be nice to explain how you're sensing it. Is that this collapse is like witness, collapse, restructure. It's literally changing form through that recalibration and reorganization of the orchestration as witness, collapse, space made. And then as that space is made, there's an instantaneous expansion of another form because it's creating this space for a new structure, right? To be built correctly in the harmonic vibration of the primordial great pure tone, which is oneness, no division. So in this spaciousness, through the collapse, so-called rise fall, which again could be perceived as different um, linear examples. But really, there's a multitude of that occurring in this divine orchestration. Is basically the cycles of disillusion creating space for the next implementation, right? Because we're getting ready to build correctly and prepare for the next steps. And so as we do that, of course, we're witnessing a lot of these confusions and storylines dissolve away. And how are we perceiving that is also how we'll be experiencing that, right? So one of my many intentions for this video is to widen the gaze beyond multi-dimensionality, beyond linear thinking, beyond time, and even beyond timeline. Like hyperfixation on like, oh, what happened? I need to merge something from Atlantis or somewhere. It's like you're not in the Atlantis right now. You're right here right now. So be here, and all of this is merged. All of you is right here. The hyperfixation or the confusion can be on the hyperfixation of these other timelines. That is a creation, right? And that was created again from that perception of delusion, perception of division, cellular division. What happens when there's a so-called division is that memory, that cell memory, right? Cell memory that actually goes from so-called other body systems through time and space through the soul essence is remembered somewhere. Where is that? Through the cell memory. So that so-called cell division was that separation thought of division. But guess what's happening now through sound and primordial light is that our cells are upgrading, right? Differently, holding pure light, which means those memories are irrelevant. Not because you didn't experience them, but because all of you, every one of you, is here right now through the grand illumination of the totality of wholeness. So what we're really doing in our being is emanating, get back to my point, no pun intended to the point of the infinity, is that what we're doing is dissolving all these other confusions, right? The stories, the story times, and really emanating our soul source frequencies, which is our primordial great tone, which is still part, I say part, it's perception, it's separate. It's a part of as source frequency, it's your soul frequency, still source frequency, primordial source, seed, sound. However, in addition to that, is unique to and within you and your soul frequency as an emanation of all of creation, right? So we're just going to take a breath for a minute, some water. That was a lot. Um, it's very important, though, of course, as you feel into that, as you feel into that and you feel into this, that we are needing to dissolve, of course, all these so-called boxes and divisions and confusions. And why is that? Because while on paper, things look linear, right? We make lines and it looks like we're walking horizontally, right? We have vertical structures. We're expanding, through space in different orientations. However, in addition to that, we are still part of a whole harmonic union of source primordial all and nothingness, which is how vast and eternal we are. And because we all are in our own ways, dissolving these confusions, as we're doing that and simultaneously allowing those stories, known or unknown, right? Cell memory, muscle memory, fascia memory, spinal memory, teeth memory, all these densities where anything can be stored. As we dissolve those through sound and through light, we open space and we restructure our cells, our body, our systems through sound. And of course, many of these expressions of sound and primordial light and this channel on these events through these other offerings is to restructure, to dissolve, to collapse, allow, release, to open, to clear. right? And what's the purpose of that is so that all of this other stuff, anywhere it's come from is not really relevant, is so that you can be in totality of wholeness, in awareness of that embodiment, in cohesive collaboration with all of your systems, in full field to field awareness, field to field communication, all organs, systems, nerves, meridians, full communication to where you can breathe and beat and feel the harmonics of the earth and also all of the universal systems as a total whole, right? Not connecting specifically to one planet at a time or star system or this place or that place, this elevator floor or that one. However, through every harmonic primordial heartbeat and every breath, you're experiencing, sensing, feeling, knowing the interconnectivity of the union of all, right? Right? Through that heartbeat, sensing, feeling, and knowing that through the allness of you, say, for example, all of your systems and fascia, nervous system, right? Everything beating and breathing, sensing the earth and the systems, sensing all of the unified field in every moment, realizing that that primordial great vibratory tone, along with the full embodiment of your primordial great frequency tones, are in harmonic resonance with each other, beyond multidimensionality, beyond linearly, beyond time and space. And yet, through every breath, that vibration, that sensation, yes, a sensing, breathing, knowing through your skin, through the air, through the ether, through the allness, right? That great knowingness that there's nothing specific that needs to be done, right? I know a lot of people are saying, well, what's my mission? What am I here to do? What's next? Everything's changing. What do I do next? What is this next place, thing, task, function, right? However, as we're opening completely and emanating our primordial source frequencies, our soul emanation, our soul song, through all of the waves and the layers, all of that is showing itself innately, is so, right? So, in that opening of the own flower, the divine flower, dissolving all these containerized boxes, we get to actually see how vast, unified, and whole that we are. And so, one of my many goals, we want to say goals, but one of my many uh, senses in these changes through the primordial sound and light center is offering these immersions for, we call them gateways of remembrance. And what those are fields of frequency held to reflect remembrance of one's own soul frequencies. We could say soul language, right? And use the term telepathy. What that's actually referencing is field to field communication awareness, opening to communicate clearly, right? And also, even in addition to that, in May, which of course, depending when you experience this, Early May, we're having a resonant remembrance 2-day immersion, and that's to remind and reflect, open and activate one's own resonant chamber of your primordial source seed. It's where you're tuning your harmonic chamber, your vessel, your body, through awakening your resonance, through your sound and your frequencies. So a lot of these current events, upcoming events, and of course others that will be developed, sensed and known through what feels needed, are to awaken that totality of wholeness, remembrance that everyone has and everyone is unique in their vibratory frequency, soul, primordial, seed, source, sound. Everyone has a unique soul frequency, source, sound. And through releasing, discarding, and opening all of the pathways, all of the fields of clarity, cohesion, communication, we're opening to emanate our soul harmonics, our eternal expression through sound and through vibration. And that is the most profound expression of every soul in their mission, is to find their song. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're singing, right? It's your emanation in its pure luminosity, radiating the primordial source vibration of all of your codes, which are instructional information, right? We look at light, frequency, technology, instructions, DNA, codes, your genetic galactic collaboration of information, instructions, very specific harmonic tones and frequencies, instructionalities within the DNA. And as we're each and everyone opening to receive and emanate our own pages of our living libraries, DNA, cells, breathing, beating, heartbeats, we're able to fully communicate, collaborate, and be in wholeness, right? Imagine what we're creating in wholeness in the next steps. All this space made. A lot, right? There's much to come yet. So very profound offerings. If you take a look at the center page on the website, it's all of the current four gateways of remembrance, fields of awareness. Of course, is 4 weeks, four gateways, 4 weeks each, to reflect, remind, implement, integrate that which everyone already knows. Because we're beyond having teachers and gurus, right? This is information to remember, recall, integrate, and instate, so to speak, within ourselves, and also experience with each other so that we can come together into wholeness, in knowingness of wholeness, let's say, to expand into our next steps. So I invite you there. I invite you to the in-person Sedona experience in May that is awakening and embodying the resonant chambers. You'll find that on the calendar page, all the details there. I won't attempt to try to describe that right here. It's a 2-day event, includes a everything is sacred. All sites are sacred, but it includes very specific sites as part of the integration experience through sound and through light. Primordial tones, and they're very ancient sites. So part of the experience there. And welcome you to take a look there if it resonates as I speak about it. And yeah, there's so much yet to come, isn't there? So I hope that you have deeply enjoyed this experience, this expansion. And I invite everyone to further and deeper continue to open through these dissolutions, open through these reconfigurations, to really open and dissolve all of these potential illusions, maybe, we'll say it that way, potential illusions that may still be residuals within the fields of knowing that we might not even know that we have yet, right? So, and one of the big ones I feel, at least I'm seeing this a lot, watching, witnessing a lot of these storylines dissolve away, thankfully, finally, and confusions, right? Is watching the misperception of time, timelines, and also these numbered systems of dimensions. So the more that we can allow ourselves to look at the vastness of all that is, the more we can see how vast we are, which allows ourselves to experience the infinity within and also the infinity, we could say, without. But there's no separation, right? There's no difference between the ocean and the sky. It's all the same. And even as it's all the same breath, it's beyond the ocean and the sky meeting itself within the earth. It's the ocean and the sky within the cosmos, which within that is still within many, many, many other galaxies. And beyond that is within the allness of the nothing and the everything. So the more that we take that earlier example of the micro to the macro, how it depends on where are we placing our focus. Are we looking hyper fixated, focused at what does this scheduled day look like? What does this week look like? What does this town look like? What does this state look like? Macro, macro, macro. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, right? And as we look there in this non-there place, zoom out and zoom out and zoom out, we begin to see that it's a lot bigger than we thought because there's actually nothing outside of that. It's the abyss of everything and nothing. So inviting everyone to widen the perspective beyond wherever the zoom lens is, right? Because that really changes everything. Where we are perceiving that great seed. Imagine that. Is that seed from the oneness? That seed that was created in cellular division? Is that really division? Or is that the perception of division as the next part of creation was created, misperceived into what happened there, and then imprinted over and over again as a different story? Oh, that seed separated. Oh, that was division. Oh, that was, these different frequency definitions and frequency emanations of what is division. Oh, it's separated. Oh, separation. Oh, it did that. Oh, it did that. Oh, now it's 7. Now it's 9. Now it's 12. Now it's do, 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 do. Over and over again until we come into this moment and say, this time doesn't exist. That division really wasn't actually how it happened. it was told that way over and over again, and then imprinted differently as each person's perception shifted and told another story through another time, continuation of confusion, delusion, dissolving the story right now. Another perception way to look at things, right? So, how are we looking at the seed? And even before the seed, that's why I invite everyone to look at things before creation, before form, before anything so called ever was, is nothingness. So, even before the so called oneness, right? Before the two-ness of dividing a cell into two, before then is the abyss of no circle, right? And in that complete totality of everything right where it is, right where it needs to be, right as it is, in its purity, is the primordial great vibration and allness. So let's invite ourselves there, especially through these, I could say, processes. But even is there a process now? Let's talk about that for a moment. Is there really a process of any of these things? Are there really cycles? Are there? As part of the orchestration, light and coherence is innately orchestrating itself. So we witness these misperceptions from the original seed sound creation of cell division collapsing. Going, oh, no, that was cell function. But guess what? Now we've evolved beyond that because our cellular function have changed. We've evolved past thinking there's 7 chakras, right? That's old news. It's all one. So as we dissolve and collapse these divisionary confusion delusions, we can start to perceive things as frequency, vibration, and allow the resonance emanation to express, expand, harmonize perception, widen our perception through these changes. Zoom out, harmonize, zoom out, breathe. I just feel like zooming out is always necessary because then you see what actually is, right? Where are you perceiving the sky? Is that sky really in the background? Is that bird really in the foreground? Oh, is that plant really in the foreground? Is the sky really in the background? Well, where are we focusing? How are we focusing? Oh, no, that background actually is the gravel and the donkey. Well, that's the foreground. Things recede and become aware and implement, integrate differently that way, don't they? So, may you have found this expansive and interesting and widening of the gaze into the totality and also dissolving the divisionary confusion, delusion, to allow one's primordial source, seed, emanation. Oh, and you know what else that reminds me? Uh, oh, my screen's funny now. What it reminds me is that our first meeting, gathering, space of center of primordial sound. This is not advertised, by the way. Our first gathering of sound and of light, primordial sound and light, is 426. It's not posted anywhere. No, it's not posted anywhere. just thinking. However, if that resonates, we're having a group gathering. You can inquire direct. There's also a small Telegram group. And we'll leave it up there for resonation, alignment, to gather primordial sound seed tones of color, of light, vibration, structure, geometry, of original tones before sound, before creation, before story, before time, right here, right now, where all is holding. I look forward to seeing you soon. I hope you found this expansive and enjoyable. I will see you very soon. Wishing you so much love. Bye.